Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy podcast, the show which shines a light on the hitherto hidden world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection. And even more importantly, I would suggest now, as we've gone through 3 seasons, the world of geopolitics, and how the secret world meets that world, and how it all sort of comes together in a melee and sort of just mixes like hubble, bubble, toil, and trouble. So that's basically what it's like. So we take and answer all the questions that make this geopolitical world of interest, and we try and answer for you, the listener, some of the things that you may have not openly asked for, but are noticing in a kind of a vacuum. So we want to take you outside of that vacuum and bring you into the world. And the way we're going to do that today is by bringing back onto the show one of my guests who was in season 1. This guy was absolutely fantastic. I mean, we spoke for quite some time, so I basically had part 1 and part 2 because I didn't want to stop him. So I did say at the end of that we'd bring you back on in a new season. So here we are, and here he is. It's the one and only Mr. Mike Kilgannon. How you doing, Mike?
I'm very well. You're making me sound like a rock star. I think I like it.
You are, mate. In this world of today, you are a rock star, because you know what? In this world of today, it's the IT guys, it's the guys who know where IT is going, it's those who can broker deals in IT and around that area. It's the use of data, it's the use of crypto in all its facets. I'm not just talking about cryptos in terms of currency, I'm talking about the blockchain, etc., etc., etc. And you're a man who's delved deep into that. So what I wanted to do, actually, since the last time we talked, you told me about a future coming along. And I've looked at it, and actually that future coming along is not coming along, it's actually here. You know, guys like you are pushing this forward so quickly that if listeners don't understand it, I think they're going to be missing out. So Mike, tell me, where are the changes since we last spoke in this sort of, what should I call it? Online world, crypto world?
I think it's a new age economy. That's the word.
New age economy.
Tend to be floating around now. I suppose you and I have been on this journey through 2 or 3 seismic changes in the way finance works, and our first real, I don't know, opening of the portal to it was when we saw what went on in 2008, you know, and the many films that have come along since, such as The Big Short, where people began to realise that the people who underpin finance are just normal people who, you know, are just bold, and, you know, they're lending money and making predictions on, not guessing, but not a million miles away from guessing. And the fiat money system and investments, I don't know whether we say it's flawed, whether it's overheated, but it's reached a plateau where change was started, but it's really gathering incredible pace over the last, I'd say the last 6 months, but maybe over the last 3 or 4 years with two major events. I think the big change was COVID. I think people have stepped back. The world's changed. People evaluate the time, sustainability, their income, their outgoings, and they're looking at new ways of doing things, cutting costs, making money, looking at new ways of interacting with each other. So where I stand now, I actually think the final piece to this jigsaw is what we're seeing out in Ukraine. I just think that's I don't know whether we want to call it the magic sauce, the final piece of the jigsaw, the accelerator. But I was taken aback that the Ukraine issued a request for funding, and they've taken millions of pounds by issuing NFTs and asking for donations via crypto. And I think that really sums up where we are in the world now. If you look back in, me and you'll remember it because we're that age, but in 84, 85, when Bob Geldof raised all that money?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the scandal was how much of that money actually got into the hands of the people who needed it.
Yeah, true.
And what we're seeing now is that people are realizing they don't need necessarily to go down the old-fashioned way of transferring money, transferring assets, transferring value. Crypto's changed all that, hasn't it? You can actually swap something direct with someone quickly, affordably, and you can sort of mark that person's got it. So I think where we are is it's been around for obviously since 2007, 2008, this new age world, blockchain, the currencies, the different way of transferring value. But I just think the people who were young, and I mean still at school or in their early careers, are much older. They're actually income earners. They're trying to find their way in the world. They've been through the challenges of trying to establish themselves. These people are in their 20s and their 30s now. They're not, young children, are they, in primary school or early secondary school? They're actually out in the real world. And again, with COVID and Ukraine and other events, I mean, let's be honest, some of the world's biggest names, such as Elon Musk, he floats all these currencies around. And, people see that he can put a tweet out about, an NFT, or you can, the latest currency on a chain, and they see the values go through the roof.
Yeah.
So, he's a rock star, but he's a rock star with vision, and, he's empowering belief in, him and many others, in that this will work.
So, Mike, do you think, I mean, I can remember what I actually called part 2 of our discussion all those months ago was utopia or dystopia as to where we were going with this process down the line. And the reason why I was talking about a dystopic change was I wondered if this would become in the hands of the system. Utopia, potentially, if it's in the hands of the many. Dystopia, if it's in the hands of the few. Where do you see it going?
Well, I think if we just put a wrapping around where we are at the moment, where 2008 brought is when the chains and the cryptos came to the fore. It was positioned as something that the people empowered who run these systems, the infrastructures, the governments, the banks, whatever we want to call them, were nervous of it. And, for whatever reason, it never caught early traction. Even though there was use of it, it was mainly for people who wanted to stay outside the system. So like a lot of things, as we know, the people who are, doing things that are not necessarily to the rules, they adopt technology very quickly. So there were many things went on, transfer of money, transfer of illegal funds, etc., using this tech, and it sort of got a bad name. Where we are now, well, the world's evolved, hasn't it? We've got a place now where the value exchange using this technology can sit in many worlds. So yeah, you can securitize it. There are countries that are prepared to regulate the securitization of money using these technologies. And it's not just about money value. The NFTs that are coming along and utility tokens and all these other amazing things, they mean that you can have multiple ways of transferring value. Because really that's what it is. If you've got £1, you can go into a shop and buy something for £1 because it's got a price mark on it. Where we are now is people are acknowledging these assets, let's call them, these digital assets. They have a value and other people are prepared to trade in them, whether it's just an exchange of, tokens for tokens, or, assets for tokens, or value for tokens. So I think, I'm involved in numerous conversations and numerous projects around this, but some people that are really at the cutting edge of this, who put infrastructure in, put banking rails in, they see it as when people and organizations look to raise money or value what they're selling as a proposition. They've got to have a mixture of offers now. They've got to have a normal fiat offer. They've got to have some sort of traditional, or that's a strange word, but that's what it is, some sort of traditional understood cryptocurrency offer, maybe, that's securitized. and they've got to have the new age stuff, the NFTs and the other loyalty tokens. So the one thing that I've always believed was low-hanging fruit was loyalty. And we're seeing now that there's a big play where people are not getting a Tesco point or a Nectar point. They're getting a neutral loyalty point that they can collect using the chain or a chain, and then convert it into whatever they want. Because if you think, loyalty is a massive currency in itself, isn't it? So when you actually go and transact, you might not get cash, but you get some sort of points for transacting.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, in a sense, we're back to the old-fashioned process of what money was originally just a barter process. So in some societies that could be cowrie beads. People came from Europe to West Africa, and they looked at parts of West Africa, not all West Africa. They looked at cowrie and said, "Oh, these fellas are just playing around with beads. How backwards are these fellas?" Well, for them, the cowrie bead was a show of a person's wealth, not because it had any intrinsic wealth other than the scarcity of it. Now, others had in West Africa masses of gold, and they utilized gold because gold was something, again, that was not only relatively rare to them, it wasn't massively rare, but relatively rare to them, but because it had a vision of being something that was exciting, it looked nice, and so they utilized gold in that process. And then others use salt. So what I'm saying is I'm just seeing, and tell me if I'm right or wrong here, I'm just seeing crypto, as you said, fashionably the old crypto, now you're coming to NFTs, as basically that process. It's just another person's barter project, barter process. Would you accept that?
Yeah, I'm lucky because and I count one of the people that I've gained a lot of knowledge from. You in that circle of extremely savvy and exposed to the real world, visionaries. That it's simplistic in that it's just a value exchange. So if you want to call it a barter, you want to call it an exchange of value, it's the same thing, isn't it? Really, you've got something that I want, and I've got something that you might not necessarily want, but you'll accept it because you think it has some value that even if you don't want, you could utilize in another exchange. So yeah, we can ring fence it as a modern barter, a value exchange. But yeah, somewhere around that. It's simplistic in that you've got something, whether it's a service or a coin or, you know, a cryptocurrency or a crypto utility or a digital utility. And even if I don't want that, but I'm prepared to trade with you because I know I can move that on to someone who does want it, you've got a series of barters, a values exchange to create ultimately its own economy, isn't it? You know, and the ledger obviously verifies all this because those transactions are recorded.
That's the big one, isn't it? You
Yes.
record the transactions, and so therefore, whereas you might have said, well, I can find 50 other cowrie shells. Now what you're saying is no, because there's only so many, and I've utilized them, and I've ledgered that it's been utilized. And this is why I wanted you on, Mike, to be fair, to come back onto the show, because I never thought that the West would utilize its hard-earned system of control of currency in a fashion that, in the end, to me, appears somewhat wanton because they haven't thought it through. And I'll explain what I'm talking about. I believe that the reason why Colonel Gaddafi was, let's say, removed, and why he was supported by generally the Western Europeans in the first instance, and then the American, to move from where he wasn't just oil, wasn't just well, it wasn't at all any idea that he was going to massacre his own people, because there was no proof on that process, but really because he had suggested a return to the gold standard and was getting some traction on that with certain people like Saudis and Kuwaitis and others who've still got gold. Now, what had happened is, of course, that the West had, particularly us, I mean, under Gordon Brown, we sold off a lot of our gold. The US, nobody really knows how much gold it really has. There's a question that it sold off quite a bit of its gold. I can remember myself going into Iraq and during the war still, and going down, I was with the American, and going down into Saddam's vaults, and in there he had a mass of gold and also fiat currencies, dollar, euros, some pounds, but he had gold there. And it was, believe me, mate, it was like the Three Kings. You had MPs all around it, military police, that is, US military police, securing it every 2 inches. They were there, machine, you know, M2 assault rifles, making sure nobody could get to it. I mean, there's a mass of gold there. So these guys in some of these countries, oil wealthy countries, had gold. Now, the point is this: if you need to prove your currency is what it's worth because you've got gold to support it, then all of a sudden the countries that haven't got the gold to support their currency, it's problematic for them, and you change the whole world order. And I believe that's what they were doing with crypto in another way. Now, it wasn't from the outside, that was from the inside, because they were Americans who were making that change happen from inside. So you couldn't just attack it, got rid of it. You had to deal with it. So why I became surprised is because when the Ukraine issue happened and the West wants to teach a lesson to Russia, it then says you can no longer use the SWIFT system. Mm-hmm. Now, that SWIFT system, that banking system, allows money to move around very, very quickly and all the rest of it. It covers the whole world. My problem with that was that once you start to take that away from a country that we perceive as negative to our actions in the West, it doesn't take rocket science for other countries who perceive they may be perceived as being negative to the West or might well be in future, start saying, well, you know what? I've been using this SWIFT system that is advantageous to the West. I'm not going to use it anymore. I'm going to find something different. I'm going to get rid of this SWIFT system. And I now only see then some type of crypto type electronic system that then takes away what SWIFT was and moves that outside of Western power. And so we actually form an own goal. I mean, that's my poor man's analysis. What would you say?
Yeah, I think The reality is that at this moment in time, the world is going through a series of challenges in the financial systems. The rails, or the banking rails, have become public knowledge. So if you actually think, to most people, well, I've got to be very careful saying that. Most people of an age, their real understanding of banking is, I've got some sort of card, I go and spend something on a card, or through some sort of transaction, and it appears as a credit or a debit on my account. What people are now more savvy and aware of is there's technologies behind it. So, we've had several seismic changes, and people actually know, there are technologies, that are making these transactions happen. And that's something that the talk of the chain and the currencies has brought. It's public domain, isn't it? So for the first time, or in real time now, people understand that by using these systems, especially SWIFT, there's charges. And what they're trying to remove is these charges, because at the end of the day, the person who pays for it, it's either the merchant, who ultimately is on tight margin anyway, or somebody who's selling you something, or it's me because I'm buying it. But as the merchant loaded his 10% on, so that product that I'm buying is £50, but really it's 40 because he's had to put £10 on it, so he still has a margin left. So I think the challenges ahead is that there has to be money made for any type of transaction, but it can't be what it used to be. So banking as it stands now, is going through major challenges. On a project, around some very good friends of mine who were extensively involved in banking, they were saying that actually trying to run a bank account now and get a client, it's just mind-blowingly expensive. You're into maybe £3,000 to get a client because of the marketing costs, the costs of identifying them, the costs of putting infrastructure in. And, you can't make money from all the products that you used to. One of them, obviously, the core one was transactions. So we as human beings like to have some sort of authority or some sort of infrastructure, but the rebellious side of us doesn't want the costs. But is it now because these technologies and these where you can exchange value are more understandable and people have more trust at them, that some sort of happy balance or fair balance is where we're going, where people understand that, you as the broker or the owner of the technology that exchanges these values needs to make money, but they don't like the big entities who, are hidden away, and, they can charge you or suddenly appear to charge you for things that you think, are distasteful, should we say, just because you've sent money abroad, or just because you've made a payment late through no fault of your own, or there's been a mistake, you suddenly get all these charges. So I just want to believe that it will all settle down, and there'll be multiple ways of transacting. I think I would call it a mixed technology infrastructure, where there'll be traditional products and services that will live on SWIFT, but a new form of SWIFT, and there'll be other transactions that fit more easily on using the chains and the other digital assets around it. But only this week, or on a project where, again, some people who are extensively involved, with these types of transactions, are talking to their investors or people they raise money for and with, and no longer is raising money just on share issues or traditional IPOs the way that they're looking at these type of fundraisers. They're looking at now that people are prepared to buy a normal share buy products and services that are offered as NFTs, buy cryptocurrencies that are mined specially for you. So it's like a blend. And where companies are going and individuals is the way that they transact and the way that they raise money and interact with each other will have lots of different flavors. Again, it is starting to be in the public domain, because people who've put billions of pounds into the ledgers are now looking for projects where they have got these mixed opportunities, not just to sell shares, to sell value in the business. And the beauty of some of these digital assets, you've got the brand out there and you've got the ownership of that digital asset by the individual and the company, but you don't necessarily give away a secured asset as against shares in the company, but it's a new type of value, that you want that company to do well because you've got a product or a token or, some sort of utility that if that company's flourishing, this token will give you access to things, so the more sites they've got or the more presence this company's got, you can get a discount or unique products or, unique opportunities. So I just think it's exciting, and it's just leveling. It's not padded down as in that, it's wholly firm, but it's starting to settle down now that this is the way things will happen.
But do you think it will ever be or ever return to what was the one singular way of doing things? Do you think it will ever return to it being in the hands of Europe, the United States primarily, Europe, London in particular, Singapore, maybe Japan? Do you think that singularization has now gone, and it's and different places will have their own different systems?
Yes. So again, just looking at a project with some people I've worked with and around for years who are heavily involved in the future of stem cell technology and trying to make it a prescriptive medicine rather than just an elitist solution or a highly expensive solution.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've got a number of chains or chain owners who want to work with them in doing different exciting things with their technology. But there's different territories that are being mentioned. So, we can use a chain that's, highly secure and highly regulated in Switzerland who are doing this with the chain. There's another chain in North Africa that's got its own form of regulation and its own form of way of going down a direction. So I hear what you're saying, and I think, just to recap it, where there was one true system that did most things, I think what we're saying, there'll be multiple territories who might each have a specialism. So if you want to do a certain thing, you might say, again, Switzerland specializes in those type of transactions. Africa specializes in that, because at the end of the day, there will be some form of regulation, but rather than it being a handful of people in a SWIFT type environment, it might be multi-territories who each focus on our investment in, the chain is for this type of service or for this type of NFT. So, yeah, I think, sadly, for the UK, when we decided to go for Brit exit, we started a seismic effect on the way that banking in Europe changed. And we didn't realize it as the general masses at the time, but we were a powerhouse in that.
Yeah,
I do believe that we will be a powerhouse in something, but it won't be anything to like the level as the major gateway in and out of Europe for the dollar.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. So how do listeners take advantage of this new? Is it a freedom? Is it a curse? How do they take advantage? Or do they need to be savvy, or they'll be left behind? How do you take your advantage of it?
Well, I think what we're also seeing now is that, and again, you and I have been waving this flag for many years, is that people now understand the data has tremendous value. So it's always been used, obviously, up to the regulations coming in, especially general data protection regulation, which is at the forefront of protecting a person's potentially personal data and the usage of it. Globally, there's similar. People now have come to accept that just because they've got a virtual self, a digital self, not just a physical self, that the data that they generate just by being them, the transactions, moving around, location, shopping, day-to-day things, these transactions have tremendous value as well. I think that what we're seeing is that people are savvier. They are prepared to try things. They are prepared to accept that they need a hustle. So I think, silly as it sounds, the hustles that they used to be, are the side hustles of, doing jobs for cash, or, having your own little micro business or cottage industry. I think people are beyond that now. I think they're looking at, what have I got around me that I can utilize to make me, if not richer, an easier income, so I have more time, so I can live a better quality of life. So, yeah. Go on,
so I was just going to say, but is that everywhere? Because, a billion people live in the African continent.
Yeah.
In India, let's say there's 1.5 billion, but many of them not wealthy, as same in parts of the African continent, not wealthy. So it's same in Central and South America. Hundreds of millions, if not 1 billion, not necessarily wealthy. Same in Asia, some of them not necessarily wealthy. So what I'm saying is that the same for everybody? Are we just talking about people in the more advanced, developed parts that can take advantage of this?
Yeah, I think I told this story once many years ago. I learned that, and thank you for reminding me. I was just having a few days away. I used to love playing golf, so I was out in Marbella. So I went out for a tea one night with my wife in Portobello, and I thought, sat there, it was a lovely tea, having a look at all the boats, and there was this crowd of guys next to me. I've seen some exuberant spending throughout my life, some of it my own, but these guys were a different level of spending. I thought, wow. So being the inquisitive creature I am, I thought I'll waltz over, see what's going on. So of course they had the champagne out and everything. So I sat down and used to smoke cigars at that time, and I got talking to them. And lo and behold, these guys were all Eastern Europeans at the time, and they were all selling Kirby's. I don't really remember the Kirby. It was the old, the Hoover came out of the States.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So I got talking to them, and basically the main man for Kirby globally lived, in Marbella at that time. And what he taught me is, listen, the world is different in that it's got different stages of maturity. So just because, it's highly advanced in America or Europe, you find there's other territories that have never seen a Kirby. They don't even have electricity. Yeah. So we move to them because we can take proven technologies and proven systems or old age, and it's new and exciting to them. So I think where I'm going is, yes, you are absolutely right. There are places in the world where they've never seen a bank account and they don't have value exchanges that we're used to in the West, i.e. incomes and assets. But I think what changes everything is with the new technologies that are coming along, it's not going to be as expensive to empower these people to have some sort of system. Now, going right back to what you said about they don't have anything, but they do, don't they? Because they've got labour, i.e. they can work, i.e. they've got a goat, i.e. they've got, some things they might grow, or, or some animals. So all that I'm probably saying is the value exchanges are different, and this tech will enable it. Yeah, because you don't need a physical banking infrastructure as a bank you walk into. So although my comments are holistic, I think the technology in every territory will do similar, but for a different type of transaction.
Gotcha.
If that makes any sense.
Makes sense. Because the reason why I mentioned that is a survey was done just this week that basically 1% of people own something like 50% of the world's wealth. The world's wealth. And that something like, I think the figure was, don't quote me incorrectly, 40% of the other people are living on 1% of the world's wealth. And the other people in the middle, are basically living an okay life, but they're not at the very top end, like these 1%, and they're not at the bottom end. So they think they're doing all right. But the massive differential, my point is, surely cannot last. I mean, if one, I mean, look, you've got Elon example. You spoke about him earlier on. He's coming up to $1 trillion, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, this is, this guy's coming up to $1 trillion himself. I mean, this is super wealth. I mean, that's context. This is super wealth for one man. I mean, it's just.
Do you not? In our lifetime, when we were going through the education system and looking for careers, the opportunities were not like they are today. So what's happened, I've been in a lot of the technologies and teams that have empowered the modern way that things happen, is that people now don't leave education to find a career, do they? They're already entrepreneurs. So super wealth, as you and I define it, to a lot of people, it isn't obscene anymore, is it? He's iconic, or these people are iconic.
Yeah.
So to you and I, that type of wealth, although we're aware of it and we understand it, it's obscene because we probably have been on a different journey. So, I mean, there was, again, on a project with guys who are heavily involved in the fundraisers and the different streams are doing it now. They've got a 28-year-old guy who's an investor to them. He was a billionaire by the time he was 21. He's been a billionaire since he's 21.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything else. All his mates are billionaires, all on crypto, and he's got, he buys and sells ranches. He's 21, he's self-made, he just picked it up at university or, in the States. So, I think what these currency and this technology has done, it's actually pickpocketed the way that wealth is moved around. It can't be hidden away anymore, can it? It can be, if you know how these systems work and you understand the value exchanges and, I mean, let's be honest, social media is a valuable tool to actually putting markers down for how you trade in these currencies. Yeah, well, these guys, it's just part of the life. It's on the phone, isn't it? So, I mean, Elon Musk and these people, to us, are maybe the first to second stream. But can you go forward 10 years, go forward 20 years? Will it not be the standard to be a billionaire? Will that not what most people will expect with their lives? I know that's a crazy statement, but I didn't say they'd achieve it. But is that most people's target now? They don't want £1 million. £1 million to most of these people is a car, isn't it?
Yeah,
these kids.
Absolutely, it's chicken feed to me and you, not, but to a lot of people, chicken feed because they're seeing something different.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, the problem could be, that if it's not shared out in a better way than it is today, that some others will turn around and say, "No, it's gone too far." The hordes will come over and say it's not too far. Now, in the past, what's happened is governments have fooled people, the normal people, by turning around and saying, the hordes are coming for us. They're coming for us, i.e., see that us? That's it. They're coming for us. Yeah?
Yes.
Hordes are coming for us. Once you're individualizing wealth in that level, You can't fool people saying the hordes are coming for us, because they say, no, they're not coming for us, mate. They're coming for you. Right? So now the question is, do these people now fight to keep the hordes out? Or do they just say, well, hang on, the hordes are probably right. Maybe they need a piece of pie as well. And you, the man who's taking it all. Because there's a danger that the people who are taking it or obtaining it, not that they're not working hard, not that they're not putting processes in place, but that these guys can no longer hide behind the mass of nationalism, racial characteristics, you name it, whatever. The danger is that they can no longer just turn around and say, hey, it's for you. Now, there's a danger with this. I come back to Ukraine and Russia. There's a danger that the West is saying, these billionaires, right, who are in Russia are bad Russians. They're bad. We're not talking about the Russian people. It's just these billionaires are bad Russians. And so we're focusing our people on these billionaire bad Russians, which we're calling oligarchs, right? Billionaire bad Russians. Sooner or later, the people are going to turn around and hang on, there's not only billionaire bad Russians, there's billionaire bad oligarch Americans. You see what I'm saying? There's a danger in that message. Now, that's what we would call in my industry psychops, psychological operations, to get people pushing forward to take action against some other people. But there's always a danger with psychops, because what it sometimes does is it opens up a door which you can't close later. And for me, the best example of that is the Taliban. You know, they're created with the CIA. You open that door to defeat the Soviet Union, and then you can't close the door after.
Okay, so let's. I'll throw this at you because this is a conversation I had with the STEM style guys. Yeah. So there's a thing called lifestyle velocity. Okay. So at this moment, they say within the next 20 years, that they'll be able to freeze your quality of life to where it is. And so you'll have an extended 30 years quality of life. Yeah, that's the general theme. There's loads of books on it. It's not my area of expertise and my comments won't be spot on, but I'm giving you the theme. Okay. So you know that your quality of life, is going to, be, fixed at a good rate. And I think the average age or the average life expectancy is in the 80s now. So we're now talking, you might live to the 80s, but your quality of life probably tips around the mid 60s for, a high percentage of people. Because obviously we've got problems with degenerative conditions, obviously mental conditions that cause obviously their ongoing problems. So we've got a mass problem with people who can live, but the quality of life's extremely limited. So they take a lot of care. So this comes along, stem cell or whatever the technology is, and it means that you've got a level of life expectancy that's got another 30 years on it, but your quality of life has got another 20 or 30 years. So you're actually 80, you're active, your brain function's good, you've got a lot of get up and go. So your 80 is your new 40. All right. So where we are now is people then are going to think differently, aren't they? Well, I need more money, because one of the themes that the stem cell guys said at this moment, the rich people are going to run out of quality of life before they run out of money, aren't they?
Agreed.
So they're caught, aren't they? So they'll always have money. That's it. Exactly. So he had all the money in the world, but he had no quality of life, or he couldn't stop himself becoming ill. So what we're going to look at then is, and it's just a theme, it's just put it out there. So we've got all these technologies going around. We've got everything based on money, but we've also got the health streams coming around. We've got the data streams coming around. Surely they're going to collide, and there's going to be an entity that are going to link them all together and maybe create some sort of collaborative where there will be a new form of SWIFT system, but it won't be on banking. It'll be on sharing things or making sure, like you say, that your income or the way you earn money or what you do with your life. Because again, you've educated me to this. There's parts in the world, and I know the Saudis are there. You can retire at 48, can't you? 49,
easily.
You know, yeah. But that's the system that's made it that way.
Correct.
So, throwing it to you, let's say all these things collided. The way that money was generated and made, yeah, the way that data was generated and shared, in that if people could take some sort of income stream by allowing you to access it, and you could take that value in lots of different ways, and you also combine that, you know, health was improved, and again that was all linked with this system. Could there not, or will there not be some sort of entity, call it the new Apple, call it the new Amazon, that's what they do? They take all these different things and you join that, and that's the new ecosystem. So like Apple's got its own ecosystem, like Facebook has, there's an opening for an entity that can join all these new age things together, yeah, and as a collective, if you find a way of blending it down, and you know, I don't know how you want to call it, a collaboration ecosystem, you know, a moral ecosystem. I don't know what the word is, but is that something you could envisage? Could that happen?
It is, but you see, the problem I have with it is as follows. Yeah. When I talk about Saudi and I talk about, it's not particularly only Saudi, you can go to any of the Middle Eastern oil-rich countries. Yeah, so you've got to be rich. Right. Yeah. What they do is, yes, they basically pay no tax in many places. And you basically at 21 they used to do this in Kuwait, I don't know if they still do, 21, they give you enough money to buy a house if you're a male, so you can get married, etc., etc. And you're looked after, and basically you're not really working as a general rule. You just have to have what they used to call wasta, which is power for you to get a business where other people actually do the work for you, to be fair. But you can't function because you have to have a national who allows you to open the business. So that all functions. But what I'm saying is, in that system where it all functions, the populations are small. They use outside populations which never really have nationality, never really have total settlement in the country. They accept that because they're making money and not paying any taxes and sending money home. So from the rich European or rich Asian, Far Eastern, or rich American who sends his money home, or even, and then the less rich Indian, let's say, and then the not rich at all Indonesian or African, and clearly there's rich Indonesians, there's rich Africans, but the non-rich ones who are out working there, or Filipinos who are working there, they're all accepting the process because they're getting paid way more than they would do at home. But the payback for that is them having to work X, Y, and Z all the time and just send their remittances home, which is another aspect, actually, which I think the future can help with. Dealing with how remittances can be sent. But anyway, they're sending remittances home from these countries. And the deal is, you're paying me that much that I could never get at home. And there's obviously a degraded element of how much it is from the Westerner to the Southerner. That they take on board that because the payment's that good. But you can't do that in every country because, number one, the oil will run out. And when it does, they're going to struggle. And some countries are already, they're already fast-seeing, like the UAE in general is quite fast-seeing and trying to put things in place for when the oil does run out so they can deal with their issues. The other one is, though, the governance of those lands only functions because they are wealthy and they buy off the people. They buy off their nationals. But once that's not there, will those nationals not say, hang on, you've been taking all this money all the time. Yeah, you bought me off before because we all lived well, but now I'm not living so well. So what am I going to get from you now, mate, for you to say that you run all the oil and the oil is all yours in that particular country? And this is why I see the dangers of religious elements coming in, because they're then preaching a different dream where everybody's sharing, everybody's at one, everybody should be living well, everybody should be living in a different way. So there's a danger that you can't buy that off anymore once your wealth starts diminishing.
Okay, so where we are in this conversation, I've got probably a unique perspective in that these technologies that you and I appreciate and have always seen or believed or been on the cusp of becoming real, they're going to have seismic changes to the order of things.
That's true.
So I think, just to recap, what I'm trying to sort of create a thought process is, they'll surely create new types of assets then, won't they? So the natural assets that these people have traded on and control things with, human beings might have other types of assets now. Like their ideas might be things that can become tangible, the data that they generate on a personal level, the health, and the way they live their life, and the knowledge that brings from inside human being, and the technologies that can make. Yeah. So maybe the chain and these other things that are on knowledge assholes, when they interlink, that there will be a fairer way of doing things, because it won't be assets that are coming out of a ground that were created when the world was put together. They're now generated by human beings. The reason I'm saying that is it's a great mentor of mine. He was involved in taking our infrastructure when we were a world leader into all these countries, and taking it out of these people's grounds and sharing it. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure he had people like your good selves with him, because that was his job. And like he said, that the moment they called him in, he knew that was the beginning of the end. Because he'd be taking out all the natural resources of this country, and the people got poorer, and the people in power got richer. So, and I think that's just a theme. So where we are now, if someone can't control that, because they can't control the data you make, can they? They can't control your ideas. They can't control your, the way your body works, or the things that your body might make, at some sort of, stem cell technology or cell level. So is there not a new type of resource coming along where the ledgers and these technologies and the things that you do could empower a more even playing field, where it wasn't as simple as that you could control that land? You're then talking about human beings and what they're empowered, or they can empower themselves to do. Again, this is radical, and and I'm not saying it's just a conversation that we're having. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
And I see the sense in what you're saying, because otherwise, if you go down the avenue that I'm again playing the role of, and the reason why I play that role, obviously, because I've been in the world of secret intelligence, and one of the main aspects in the world of secret intelligence is the economic well-being of your country, right? That is a primary aspect, the economic well-being. So one of the agencies I work for, people know better than MI6 or the Secret Intelligence Service, one of its tasks is the economic well-being of the United Kingdom. Now, the economic well-being of the United Kingdom was quite easy when the United Kingdom owned everything. So let's take something like Jaguar. So Jaguar is owned by the United Kingdom, by a United Kingdom company. So it is to the economic well-being of the United Kingdom that people like me would find stuff out that was of interest, and then I passed the information through to my bosses, and my bosses would turn around and pass it through to the state, and the state would say, well, we'll give Jaguar a leg up by giving them this latest information, because it's a British company, and that's great. No, it isn't a British company, is it? No, it's something called a British brand, right? Which is not a company at all. It's just a name behind it. It's owned by Indians. So you cannot now turn around and say, we're going to help out Jaguar for the economic well-being of the United Kingdom.
Yes.
Now, selling Jaguar because it's produced in the United Kingdom and it's got factories in the United Kingdom, is good because it keeps people in work in the United Kingdom. But actually, aiding it to be the best isn't necessarily any more positive, because the Indian people who own it would take that best knowledge and take it back to India and produce it in other models, and may even get rid of the United Kingdom's base it's got and have it just as an Indian base. So that's how now fluid that has become. So whereas before a whole load of companies was owned by Britain, now, just like take the car industry, now there is not one single mass-produced vehicle, and I'm saying it again, not one single mass-produced car company that is owned by the United Kingdom, by a United Kingdom company. Now, there may be brands which it has its name on, Rolls-Royce, this, that, the other, but they're not owned by Britain. They're owned by Germans, by Indians, by French, by whomever. Yeah. This is now your problem. So you're living in a world now where is the economic advantage? Where is the economic well-being of the country? How does it function? So you get the crazy situation where Tata Steel owns a steelworks. The United Kingdom sells it off for a pound. The United Kingdom government puts masses of money into it just to keep the factory working in Britain, but it doesn't own it. And in the end, it sold off to some, I think it was Turkish company, half Turkish military, just to keep people trying to work. But the reality is it's not owned. So my point there is, I give you that perspective, just to say, even in the first world, yeah, which undoubtedly the United Kingdom is, it might be the 7th largest economy in the world, whatever it is now these days, maybe 6th, 7th, whatever. But the bottom line, it's still in the top tier of countries. It isn't controlling its own destiny.
Okay, but I only had this conversation 24, 48 hours ago, going back to the gentleman I told you put utility or helped nations draw the utilities out or the natural resources and monetize them. He was around at the time when Margaret Thatcher sold all these countries crown jewels. So it used to be British Gas, British Electric, British Telecom, and he was, again, very much in the people who advise, the key actors, the politicians, or as he used to say, the current directors of Great Britain PLC. Yeah, and they went against the popular advice that these are national assets. The moment you do that, there's nothing left. You're mortgaging everyone's future.
Yes.
And what you're basically saying is we have allowed ourselves to become effectively a purchaser of services. Correct. We don't make anything, and the only thing we became empowered or drove us as back as a major powerhouse was the banking. But the Correct. Moment we left Brexit, we removed ourselves from that. So as we stand today, it's such a difficult and complex area because technology and people's education and people's expectations, surely are totally different from when an organization could not necessarily control them, but could put them in a box easily because they didn't question it. People weren't entrepreneurs, whether they went to work, they did jobs, they didn't want to be self-employed.
True.
So all that it is there's a general theme that we like people to be controlled. There's a general theme that for security and for structure, it's good if everyone has a pigeonhole that they live in.
Yes, absolutely.
But
idle hands and all that.
But do you think that this is one of the things that stopped this technology from being more readily available until these last 2 or 3 years, that they were able to do that because the people were undecided, but now the general masses are thinking, hang on, there is a way we can do things differently. It's not confidence. Right. Yeah. So is it now? It's like you said, I heard a question on the radio the other day, it was a silly question, but it was also a powerful question. all this money that's been taken off the oligarchs, who's got it? Where is it? Yeah. And it's true, because where is it?
Absolutely.
They've taken billions and billions of pounds off it. So if they took some money off me and you, we'd be angry, but we'd want to know where it was, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so as silly as it sounds, when 2008 came along, the HMRC suddenly became empowered. If you had any money offshore, you were a terrorist unless you brought it back onshore and paid your taxes on it, because they came up with this act, So it was evasion and avoidance and all these things. So with these guys, the oligarchs, and there's not just Russian oligarchs, there's oligarchs from all different places in the world. When they seize their money, where's that money going? And will they ever see it again?
There you go. And that in itself is problematic, isn't it? Because it upsets the order of things. I mean, if you think about the United Kingdom, think about London, massively overheated, because in London you've had not only Russian oligarchs, use that term, but from all over the world thinking, London's a nice place to have your money, nice place to buy good houses, nice place to have your divorce, nice place to do this, that, and t'other, and all that's bringing money into the city, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're now making that hostile.
Yes.
You've got to figure it. And these people have got to be thinking, well, hang on, is London a good place to have my money? Because if it goes wrong, or for whatever reason they don't like my country, be it China, be it India, be it any African state where the wealthy ones have got their money sat in London, for any reason they don't like me, my stuff's all gone. So you know what? I might look at Switzerland now. See what I'm saying?
So I think what we're seeing out in the Ukraine is the world doesn't want war. And I'm not just talking about the people, I'm talking about the other powers. So where we stand today is, rightly or wrongly, when all the money was distributed that came out of Russia, the world accepted it and it enjoyed the fruits of that money because, it came into people's economies. But now that obviously Putin has upset people and they're pushing back, we're now in a strange place, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So I think that, I think, and it's, we're touching on topics that a lot of people won't want to pass comment on, which I get, and it's not that I'm nervous of passing comments. I just think the old play is far bigger than thought processes that, I've got or knowledge. But I think if we use Russia, as I said at the very beginning of this conversation, and what's going on in Ukraine, as the cherry on top of the cake of why things are going to change, and and you've educated me to this. The problem's not going to be now; it's when it all ends, no matter how it ends. Because the two leaders, people are going to look at them and say, "What the hell have you done?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So really, there's going to be a mess, isn't there? The Russians are going to be in a financial state where they're probably going to have to build their own internal ecosystem. And will they ever be allowed back into the world stage?
Yeah.
Do we know?
But as we know, people will scream to get into it, because at the end of the day, there'll be money there.
Yes.
Like your Eastern Europeans. Yeah.
Yes.
Going back to your Eastern Europeans in Port of Venus, there'll be people going into that because they know they'll be able to make money there.
Yes. Okay. No, I get that. But the leader of the Ukraine, is he going to be a hero when the country's flattened? Well, or will people be asking, "Where's my house? Where's my job? Where's my pension? How did this happen?"
Right. He's going to struggle unless the United States bails it out. Right.
Yeah.
He's going to struggle because people are going to say, "Well, we fought this war, mate. You're still going okay. You've still got your money sat in Panama," because he's part of the Panama Papers. So you've still got your money sat in Panama, mate. So you're being looked after. My house has gone. My mortgage has gone. This and that and the other. And, I'm trying to bring my family back home and I've got no house to live in. So when the war ends is when the real reality hits people. So the question will be, how do they function? So this is bringing us back around now to what we started with. The new utility of the world order, which you brought me into seeing as potential dystopia or utopia, and what we can do. My feeling is as follows, and tell me where I'm wrong. Because I think, we've gone a long time. I'm going to have to, start to bring the episode to an end. But my point is this. I think it's right that data will be utilized for the advantage of perceiving what we have at a much wider level than what we do now. Because now we just look at actual physical assets or whatever it might be, but you're going to utilize data so you can tailor your aspects to individuals. But my question was, and still is that only relating to the wealthier world? I believe that there are remittances in the trillions to be able to be utilized by people in the less wealthier world to start them to become wealthy. If we can just get into them without the banking system, utilizing this crypto, utilizing their mobile phones, utilizing their data, utilizing their innate capacity to live, because these people are ones living at the edge, always creating something. We throw away a Coke can, they make a Coke can a briefcase. So these people have got capacity and skills. So can we utilize them by allowing microfinance through the systems to create a better world? That's my question.
Okay, so today on the radio, I think the HSBC are saying there's millions of people that are homeless in this country and they can't get a start because they're unbanked. Yeah, and they're trying to come up with a no address account. So even though we're a first world country, we've still got a problem, with people who can't get bank accounts in a first world country. Who are advanced. So I totally get and agree that there is still room in this territory for a system that will probably be on a mobile phone that will allow the tracking and identification of value exchanges, whether that be the time exchanges. I'll give you my watch, you give me food, I'll lend you money. A system that is not necessarily banking as you know it, but is a way of monetizing these transactions and proving those persons exist. But if you take that outside this territory, where the transactions will be relatively simplistic, there's billions of complex transactions and what you've said. Because the cottage industries out there, are how people live, are their normality, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes.
So it's like you said about there's children that go out every day, isn't there, in parts of the world to collect water because there is no running water. Well, that's a transaction, isn't it?
Yep, true.
So, maybe while you were there might be, if you get me something, I'll give you something, bring me some water back. So, but they haven't got a system, have they, where they can track that exchange and it can be policed, because in those territories, as we know, their access to danger or the ability for people to renege is there, isn't it? Because It's just a handshake. So banking really, in the most simplistic layer, is just a way of looking in your account and saying, I swapped my time for a wage. I bought some food and I paid for it out of my bank. And the fiat money system is just a currency. If there was another way, which the ledgers can do, and transactions were given a value, and there was millions of those data sets, that would be its own ultimate way, wouldn't it? Because you could value things. Well, look, 2,000 transactions have gone where someone has swapped the time for, a bag of flour. So straight away that it's got a value, because that bag of flour in that country is worth £2. So all we're saying is, other than it being backed on gold and securitized, the data transactions will allow you to value things, won't they? Because there's a transaction there, and if somewhere in that chain of transactions you can put something that has a physical value, so it might be 14 layers away from a transaction, but it all started on someone that swapped something for £2, £5, £10. It echoes through.
Gotcha.
That's so where we are is the technology is the technology. There'll be new ways of delivering value exchanges. Banking as it stands doesn't necessarily mean that there's money in the bank, but there might be loads of transactions. That might be your bank account. I've got 500 transactions that happened last month. Yeah. And someone might come to you and you say, well, the data from those transactions in itself, I want to buy that off you. That's worth £300 to me. Yeah.
Yep,
Because
gotcha.
you're identifying exchanges that have a value, i.e. that person has food.
Or
that
indeed not
person
even
uses
buy
that.
it. Or indeed turn around and say, okay, so now
Yeah.
you've got an NFT that allows you to visit
Yes.
for healthcare.
Yes. Yeah. And that came from a guy who swapped it for 600 quid, but he's never going to use it, but he's prepared to swap it for things. But all that means is the £600 going up the value chain, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because
Or the transaction chain.
because otherwise he's never going to have the money to visit his GP or his doctor or his version of his doctor, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
because he's done that, he's building that up. It's like, I guess, when people first came out with, I know the United States system, because when I used to work for them, they had a system whereby you built up so many days sick leave. Well, instead of
Yes.
building up sick leave, what you're building up is sick visit capacity to see a doctor.
Okay.
Did you see what I mean? It's an NFT that says, yeah, you've got so much NFT time to see your doc.
Yes. Well,
Because
no,
medicine's
I
everything.
get it. Yeah, and I get it. And people might get paid in these utility tokens in NFTs because they know they can exchange it for something because it'll give them access. So all that it is we're not creating transactions. We are just ledgering them, aren't they? They're going on anyway. And that's what we're saying. There are billions of transactions happening that no one's ledgering that do have a value. Even if you don't put a monetary value on, they've got a transaction value that, with all the intelligence we've got, it might show that in that country, the most important thing is a tin of beans.
Yep.
Because that tin of beans generates 6,000 transactions. Yeah, and those 6,000 transactions keep that country going because the labour time in itself is worth X, Y, Z. I mean, these are just extreme examples. But
Yeah, I understand it. What you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, we're total whiteboarding, but I just believe, and where we are is there are several different technologies from the health world, from the data world, from the crypto world, from the ledger world that are colliding, and I think it's intriguing, exciting, unbelievable, whatever word we want to put on them. That there are things that are going to come that will be the norm. That to us at the moment, we know they're there, but we can't really pin down what they are. We know that we're going to go and find them, yeah, but the world will do different ways. And I know that there's a lot of very wealthy people in monetary values, but wealth might be something different. It'll still buy you things, but it might not necessarily be in a fiat-based currency. It might be in some other type of transaction value.
Yeah, gotcha. And I mean,
Okay.
I'm going to have to leave you, my friend, because we've, once again, I love having a discussion with you. I hope that the listeners do too, because it truly is the future. And I mean, when I said this last time and we were going on issues which were, frankly, 2 jumps back from what we've just been talking about, I think we're already at those 2 jumps back. And that's how quickly it happened. So, when we were talking last time, I say we're 2 jumps back. We were just talking about making those intrinsic connections between data and the capacity to value. Now what we're talking about is data and other things that may come from it that might not be valued in terms of monetary value, fiat currency or whatever, but in terms of goods and services, what you might get that show themselves on a ledger in an NFT. So, I mean, we've jumped within what? That's got to be 3, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, maybe?
Yeah, 6, 8 months. Yeah, 7 months. But again, a lot's happened in that time.
Very true.
A lot has happened, and I think what it's done is it's reinforced that it's now time to do things differently.
Yes. And I think
Okay.
that couldn't be a better place to end. It's now time to do things differently. Mike,
Yes.
once again, my good friend, thank you very much for your futuristic view of the world as it is and the technologies that are available to make that all happen in the real world. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is not just future gazing. We're whiteboarding, as Mike put it. We're whiteboarding, but we're whiteboarding reality. Because when we did it last time, we're already at the points that he was talking about last time. And that
Yes.
was only 7 months ago. So believe me, to get to the points we just spoke about today may not be that far away either. Mike, I got to say it again. I want you to say thanks. Thanks very much, Mike, again. And ladies and gentlemen, we will see you again next week.
Thank you, Carlton. Always great to speak to you, my friend.
We'll have you back on again, mate. Maybe in 4 months' time if we move that quick.
Yes. Well, yeah.
See you again, mate.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4, or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence.